To tell you the truth, if I could be a functional alcoholic or addict, I probably still would be. And I'm not saying that I'm doing this recovery thing begrudgingly. This is the best thing I've ever done with in my life. I need to do this and I'm happy that I'm doing this. But I don't know if I would have ever made it out of the cycle. I don't know if I could keep myself from relapsing if I was able to do it and like some people go on for months or years because I got to a point where when I relapsed, I would implode, self implode so horribly. I could not function, and I'm talking like not even function for a couple of days. I remember some people kind of would congratulate me in this way, where it's like, it's so good you slipped up, but you came right back to recovery, and I applaud you for that. And I'm just like, dude, I don't applaud me. I don't think I could have made it for more than 2 weeks with the way that I drink and use, and now combine those two in my relapses, and it was so just losing everything immediately. Like my life was this, carefully constructed etch a sketch, and then just one day of relapse is just shaking it all up, and it's all gone. The job's gone, the place to live's gone, relationships gone, everything. It was just so insane. But that was a good thing. I think that being able to be a functional, like some that I've met, functional alcoholics and drug addicts. And the thing is that like I'm a firm believer that people will only change if they have to. And in this way, if you don't have to, your life will be crappy and you'll be getting by with the bare minimum, but you can still find a way to maybe isolate yourself more and to do less with your life, but you could still find a way to just exist with drinking and using, then you won't be forced to change. And because you were never forced to change, you now just have this miserable life that could go on forever. I know people that I went to treatment with where they went to treatment, and this was after 30 years of like using and drinking. This is the first time they went because it was the first time that everything came to a head where they had to. Now, maybe they had a slower trajectory or whatnot, or their, alcoholism or addiction was like a little less rampant or more contained, but they're like, yeah, the life sucked, but I just was able to keep going through with it. I was able to kind of just get by, and life should not be about just getting by and just existing. But I know, like, again, as crazy as it sounds, I know I would do that because I would always try to find a way. Hopelessness is usually like a death nail to recovery and to life, really. But I found a good form of hopelessness, and that was being hopeless to ever think I could make this whole drugs or drinking thing ever work out. Ever. There was no, like, imagine a Venn diagram of functioning life. Again, not a good life, a functioning life, and then drugs and alcohol. And I wanted to make this little sliver. Can you see that? Can you see my eye there? This little sliver in the middle where I could live in, where I could just exist somehow, both with the functioning life and with drugs and alcohol. But I couldn't. It was like trying to get two billiard balls to smash together. I could never merge the two. It was either I could function in my life like I'm doing right now and, reaching my potential, or the insane black hole of drugs and alcohol. And that is the only way it could be. There was just seriously no other way I could do things. And I tried and I researched and I tinkered with stuff and tried new approaches. I tried recently over the past 3 years, started doing a new drug. One that I was in what I call the honeymoon phase of, where I was able to, like, I didn't need to take as much. My tolerance was low and I could kind of just get by and function. I was doing a lot of stuff. I was working a really good job and in a relationship, and and it wasn't every day, and things were just like, okie dokie. I knew in the back of my mind, of like, dude, this is not going to end well. Like, this never ends well. And I was just kind of like, whatever, and I kind of just like sloughed it off and just told myself, well, I'll downshift here sometime because it's not drinking. It's not the suicidal madness that is drinking. So this is all right. We'll figure out how to wean myself off of this. And that just never happened because I could continue to do it until I couldn't. And that became very abrupt. And then immediately, like, it just all came crashing down with like health problems and then losing the job and then just like starting to go truly like insane. And, I was like, crap, dude, I can't even do this for a little bit, like, especially with drinking now. And I know this happens with a lot of people because, especially if you've been to rehab or especially if you have tried recovery earnestly, and you really admitted to yourself that you're an alcoholic and addict, and you really believed it. You weren't doing it to please anybody. You said it to yourself. Then when you relapse again, there's so much shame that just rushes in, and it's basically like they say AA or 12-step programs or rehab or whatever recovery. It's a total buzzkill. It ruins your drinking. You know the old saying that, like, a head full of AA and a belly full of booze like sucks ass. Maybe they don't say that part, but it's terrible. And it's like that with anything with recovery. I think it's just like that when you have admitted to yourself that I can't do this, but then you go back and you relapse and you're doing it, and the whole time you're just like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm just gonna get by. And again, if I was able to do that and get by, because that's kind of how my trajectory of my life and my addiction went, where it started actually with drugs back when I was 15 and opiates, and that just kind of went down crazily. I had the stamina of a young man to keep up with it for a little while, but then that went down, and then it was drinking, and then the drinking kind of changed and mutated over the years. But a lot of the relapses became, I had longer stints of sobriety and smaller times of relapse, but the relapses became so much more destructive. It was like crazy town, like right away once the liquor hit the brain. It was just, call it a wrap. Like, it was immediately and everybody in my life, because I really tried to recover, everybody in my life knew the deal, and I told everybody all my secrets, the magician that told all his tricks, and so it became ultra hard to hide anything, and it was just madness. I started having these manic flights of reality, and just not only that, but I would just run off and drive somewhere in a hotel and basically do a Leaving Las Vegas, but leaving somewhere in Nebraska because I couldn't afford to go, do it Vegas. I was drinking Bartons, man. But no, and again, and I feel bad. There's part of me that feels bad saying this. I'm glad it got as crazy, and self-destructive. And I know people in my life would be like, well, we weren't glad. We were incredibly worried about you. We were up nights, sick, where we didn't know where you were out on the streets. We aren't glad for this at all. But I understand that. And again, it's some guilt that comes in for saying I would still be drinking if I could do it. And I'm not saying that's the right way to think. I'm saying that's the way my mind was going to be. I'm not saying nearly that everybody's like that, but it was the way I was. And so in this way, I find it I'm grateful that I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it. Now, that doesn't mean knowing logically that I can't do this stuff is not enough. Knowledge is not half the battle in addiction. I still go back on stuff. I've known for at least over a decade now, that there's no way I'm really going to make this stuff work out. But we'll just try to relapse and function for a little bit. Still stupid. So that knowledge doesn't completely stop me. I still have to work a program of recovery, but it just makes it easier that I can't function. One, because the relapses only seem like lapses because they're not that long. But two, not only am I not out there long enough, but I realize how unfeasible it is to try to make this thing work. And like I said, a good form of hopelessness. Man, you really tried it, man. You tried your best at this thing. Let's try our best at something else, but you really did. You gave it the old college try, and man, that did not work out. So let's move on from here. Oh, yes. I have a new book out. I'll put the link for it in the description. It is a book of horror short stories. It's called You Are Not Alone. I have it available on Amazon for paperback and Kindle. And I also, if you want to check it out, if you want to check out one of the stories, I'm very proud of it. You can, there is an email I will put in the link where you can request a free PDF copy. And the reason I even promote this on, this channel is because a lot of the horror short stories are either indirectly or directly based in addiction or mental health type of fields. Some of the characters are addicts or alcoholics or struggle with it. Some are metaphors for it, but they're nice and spooky, and it's spooky season, so I really think you'll like it. So again, check that out in the description. Other than that, be well.